When I go after a photograph, an extraordinary vision, there were 4 steps that I would try and do every time. And the first one of those, based on how the geographic looks at the world, was to focus the vision. And what I'd try and do is celebrate the best in the shot. So when I was faced with kind of a chaotic vision like this one, I'd say, what am I falling in love with? What's exciting me? In this case, it's easy. That's my daughter. Right? So I knew what was exciting me. I knew what I was falling in love with. But when I find it, then I try and enhance that, and get rid of everything else. Instead of starting, as we so often do, by looking at a situation going, what's wrong with it? What's right with it? Because that connects us with our passion. That emancipates the energy. Michelangelo once wrote, I saw an angel in the stone and carved to set it free. I saw an angel in the stone and carved to set it free. So first I want to focus the vision. And then I have to train my technique. Because vision without technique is blind. I mean, it's great to have a wonderful idea, but that's only half the battle. You have to bring it, manifest it into reality, to move from imagination to imagination. So I'd spend hours, days, weeks studying my technique. F-stops and shutter speeds and strobes and tripods, so that when there was a decisive moment, when nature opened a window of opportunity, I wasn't worried about what lens was on my camera. I was there ready to capture it. I call this one midlife rebirth. So I try and focus the vision, then I train my technique, and then I put myself in the place of most potential. The place of most potential. If nature's going to present us with multiple right answers, where do I have the best chance of finding them? One time I was taking a shot of Lake Powell, in southern Utah, northern Arizona, and I'm flying over what I thought was an absolutely uninhabited, uninhabitable part of the lake. And I look down, and I don't think many of you can see it, but there's a road going along here, a road and a little car. I didn't know anybody even could get out there. And yet seeing it, I knew it was possible. And so I went back to my campsite. I studied the local papers. I figured the day that I wanted to get out there. I rented myself a 4-wheel drive. I packed it up with provisions. I bumped all the way out to that little overlook. But boy, I was there in the place of most potential when the full moon rose over the lake. And when you're there with your vision and focus and your technique down, God, those right answers just keep coming. Focus the vision. Train your technique. Put yourself in the place of most potential. And then the 4th step seems like the easiest, but it's really the hardest. And that's to truly be open to the possibilities. Possibilities you never dreamed of. I was photographing recently in Marine World. And I'd finished the assignment, which was to photograph the orcas and the dolphins. And I'm heading back to the car, and they have these things called dancing fountains in Marine World. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but water comes out of one, goes in a big parabola into the next one, out of that, into the next one. It looks like a big worm going across the landscape. And this kid has his hand on the source, And he's waiting, and so am I, and he's ready, and so am I. And I know what that next right answer is going to be. And man, I nailed it. But I'm not putting on the brakes, I'm staying open to the next right answer, because if I thought this was it, I never would have seen this one. Possibilities we never dreamed of. Staying open to them. When the great photographer Minor White would go out to photograph, he wouldn't ever say, "What will I take today?" Rather, he would ask, "What will I be given today?" And I would add, "Will I be open enough to see it?" So that just became the way I would shoot. They'd send me to these amazing places like Rose Spit on the top of Graham Island in the Queen Charlotte Islands. And it was on this amazing piece of land that the Haida Indians believed that man was first created when Raven opened a clamshell and let him out. And I was lucky enough to be there one glorious evening with 2 Haida Indians dancing on the beach. And this was one of my first shots. Good shot. You know, I had the two participants, one with the drum, one with the paddle. And now I'm saying to myself, what's exciting me? What am I falling in love with? And at that moment, it was just that boy's face. So I grabbed my telephoto and went in. Good right answer. But good as it was, as I'm looking through the lens, I'm saying, wait a minute, DeWitt. You're too close. You've forgotten where you are and who you're shooting for. It's a nice portrait of a child, but it's not a portrait of a Haida. And so even though this was a really good right answer, easily, comfortably, I let it go. Let it go, pulled the zoom lens back just a little bit, picked up the paddle. Much better shot. In fact, the Geographic agreed with me and ran it as the opening spread in the article. And so what I began to see is that, you know, it's not about finding the right answer. It's not even about finding another right answer. What our lives are about continuously finding the next right answer.
And now before I wrap this up, let me show you one last example of how all these techniques go together. And this, not an assignment for the Geographic, but a big advertising campaign I did for Dewar's Scotch. And they sent me over to Scotland with an obscene budget and a crew of 9 and 3 clients to watch over me, you know, no pressure. And one of the things they asked me to do was photograph salmon fishing on Scotland's River Tweed. And man, again, I'd done my homework. I knew what I wanted. I came down that windy road to the River Tweed. I had images in my head of backlit salmon and silver cataracts and leaping fish, and the windy road delivered us, and there it was. Looked like the East Sandusky River, you know? The river without drama. I turned to my art director. I said, what are we going to do? He said, I don't know, I'm car sick. I'm going back to the road. So it was up to me. You know, how many times every week is it up to you? I got talking to one of the guides, the gillies, the gentleman there in the foreground. Each beat of the river, each stretch has a different guide, a different gilly, and they know every rock and every shoal and every riffle. And he told me that salmon fishing in Scotland's a very formal affair. You wear a coat and a tie and a hat and chest waders. Now I'm getting intrigued. And then he told me that when you catch a salmon, you bring it up to the fish hut, and in that hut is a leather book, and in that book is listed every salmon that's been caught on that beat in the last 100 years. Now I'm getting intrigued. Now I'm seeing this great formal dance that these guys are doing, this salmon gavotte on the river, you know. And then he said, you know, laddie, there was mist on the water this morning. That's unusual for this time of year. And my intellect climbed all over it, and it said, I want to be in the place of most potential. So I'm out there 2 hours before dawn, and when the sun starts coming up, I got the boat, I got the gilly, I got the fisherman, I got the right lens, I got the right focus, I got my first right answer. I got room up there for tight, and a little bottle of scotch. I know what I'm doing, right? And then my intuition starts screaming at me. It says, turn around, DeWitt. You're shooting the wrong way. Yes, sir, I listened to it. I turned around, man, now it was really getting nice. I'm trying to pay attention to realize that this photograph is made by body language, not by facial expression. Get that right on the two guys. And at the same time, my intellect realizes the sun's going to come up behind those trees, so I yelled at the guys to get in the boat and rowed down there because I want to be in the place of most potential. And man, now it's really getting nice. And talk about having my technique down. I've got a walkie-talkie in that boat. Yes. I'm not worried about making mistakes. I'm just looking for the next right answer. And they just kept coming. And this was the final ad. Why would a man rise before dawn to fish for salmon on Scotland's River Tweed? Why indeed? The good things in life stay that way. So that's how all these techniques go together. And I hope you can take those metaphors and use them in your own life. Because by being creative, we really do fall in love with the world. And in that moment, we transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. My photography has given me so many of those moments. Moments where the whole world just shines, you know, with meaning and power and wonder and reverence. Moments where I know that if I'm open enough to see it, I always live in a world full of light and abundance and opportunity. And you know, the beauty of that world shows us an incredible example of how to live, of how to love, of a banquet laid, of a cup overflowing, of just putting it out there, the very best that we have to offer every day. without any regard to whether it's received or not. And I know that if we let that beauty fill us up, that we too will overflow. And it'll come out in everything we do. In the quality of the way we conduct ourselves, in the caliber of the products we offer, in the depth of service we give to our clients and our customers, and then just as clearly, in the way we treat our family, in the service we give in our community, in the stories we tell to our kids at bedtime. It'll come out in our lives. And I had that come so clearly to me one night when I stood beside the great fountain geyser in Yellowstone. And as the sun began to set, the geyser began to go off. And it was just unspeakably beautiful. And I kept photographing and dancing and crying out until that last marvelous apparition had risen up from the geyser and disappeared. And I thought, there are probably 30,000 people in the park, and they all ought to be right with me watching this incredible miracle. And then I realized that it really didn't matter. Because that banquet, that miracle, is out there every day. Not just at Yellowstone at sunset, but every day in everything we do. To fill us to overflowing, to connect us with our passion, to infuse us with creativity and with love. See that vision, my friends, and seize the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.